Morning folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters and the Pathfinder School. What I thought we'd do today is look at 5 common wild edibles. What we're going to do is we're going to walk around the areas of my yard that are around my outbuildings, some of which haven't been mowed yet this year. So they're growing some good wild edible plants. And I think if you can get yourself to where you can identify 5 or 10 that you routinely pretty much step on every day, I call those wild edibles underfoot. Something that you can pick and eat raw, something that you could cook as a pot herb if you chose to, something that doesn't really matter if you eat the leaves or the flowers, something that's perfectly safe for you that you can't eat too much of, and something that really is also medicinal in value as well is important to understand, because most things that are edible also have some medicinal value. And if you understand what those values are, you can take advantage of that as well. So let's talk about what I would consider the 5 most common underfoot wild edibles of the eastern woodlands. Stay with me. All right, so the first underfoot edible that we'll talk about is the dandelion. Very typical, easy to recognize, yellow flower on the top. When it goes to seed, it gets that big puff ball that you can blow and the seeds go everywhere. It has a very distinct leaf on it in the rosette, and the smaller leaves, the young tender leaves down here toward the bottom of the rosette that are just starting to grow, these are the ones you want to harvest to use this as a wild edible on the fly. If you're going to cook it, you can cook these flowers with flour. You can cover them in a flour and egg solution and fry them. They make really good what's called a fritter. You can also cook these leaves as a green, as a pot herb, and eat them as well. Or you can just use it for a salad green if you're eating them raw. It's a very good plant for stomach ailments and things like that, upset stomach. Most of these dark green plants, the reason that people ate dark greens or vegetables, salads, before they ate their main meal is because they stimulate the secretion of bile and help you to digest and metabolize meat products and things like that that you're putting into your body. So that's why salads were eaten before the main course of meat most of the time. So any dark green is going to be good for your stomach. Dandelion is also good for the blood, but the dandelion root, if you dig it up and make a decoction from the root, is also good for stomach type ailments as well. But as far as the edibility goes, this is a prime edible that I guarantee you've probably got hundreds of these in your yard. Unless you really manicure your yard and try to get rid of them, they're everywhere in the eastern woodlands. Okay, so this plant is red clover, growing all over the place right here. And you can see the slight variegation in the leaves. It's got a slight white arrowhead in it right here in the leaf. That's a good indication of red clover or buffalo clover. You can eat this as a raw herb. You can pick it and eat it, or you can cook it and eat it, either one. And you can do the same thing with the flowers, or you can bread them and you can fry them just like you do at dandelion tops, or you can dry the flowers out and make a tea from them. All of that will work just fine. But this is another very common plant that grows underfoot that you can just pick it and eat it right off the ground, just like this, okay? This is some larger red clover here. It's not bloomed yet. Doesn't have that reddish purple flower, clover flower on top of it yet, but these are a lot larger than the ones we looked at a second ago. And even though they're larger, they can still be eaten. But generally speaking with plants, the younger the plant is, the better palatability it has. In other words, it'll taste better when it's younger, especially if you're eating it raw. But it is edible even at this stage. Now, as far as the medicinal value of red clover has a lot of anti-inflammatories in it. Again, it's a dark green, so it's good for the stomach. It's good for the blood. But it does have anti-inflammatory properties, so it can be used externally on things like scrapes, wounds, anything that has swelling involved in it or pain. You can use red clover on, massacate it into a poultice. Okay, what we have here is we have plantain, and we have 2 different species of plantain growing side by side. So it's a really good example because we have a longleaf plantain here and a broadleaf plantain here. Both of them have the same properties. Both of them are edible. You can, again, you want the younger leaves are going to be the more palatable, and in this case, the less fibrous, because it's a very fibrous plant. So if you're trying to get fiber in your diet, plantain's a good way to do that. You can, again, you can take this and you can eat it raw, or you can cook it. Same thing with the longleaf plantain. The medicinal advantages of the plantain are, Matthew Wood calls plantain the master drawing plant. So it has anti-inflammatory properties. It also has drawing properties, and it will help to draw out things like venom from a stinger, pus from a wound where you've got a splinter in there that's festering up. You can put a poultice, whether it's a spit poultice that you just chew the plant up and put it on there, or a warming poultice to help open up the pores in the skin, a warming poultice of crushed plant on top of the wound. It will help draw out the infection or draw out the venom from a sting and things like that. Again, the longleaf works the same way, and being side by side like this, you can see that they grow in exactly similar environments in the same time of year. So longleaf and broadleaf plantain can be used cross-functionally, and they're both edible plants. Right here is an onion, all right, a wild onion, and we'll pull the plants out from around it so you can see it better. But the stalk looks just like any green onion you would buy at the store. And so we're gonna dig that dude up. It won't be real deep, but I want to get it good and clean for you before I use a shovel on it. You can see here, there's lots of bulbs in here. All of these small bulbs are edible onion bulbs. You can eat every one of these. There's about 10 or 15 of them right here. And you can take all of those out of the soil, clean them up, cook them and eat them. And there's the main bulb there. But all of these are edible onion bulbs. This is the main bulb, like I said, on the onion. You can just clean that thing off, cut the roots off of it with your knife. You can cut that thing all the way up and use it for chives. So it's an edible plant that you can eat raw or cooked. You can use it for a cooking ingredient in soups and stews and things like that. But also, the other thing that's really good about onions is medicinal value, all right? Onions are carminative, which means they help to settle an upset stomach. So you can use them like you would use garlic and things like that, because they're a related species, to help settle a stomach, especially these, because they're a very mild onion compared to something like a Vandalia onion you would buy in a store. This is a very mild version of that. It almost has a garlic-like onion mix taste to it, that flavor. So this is another very good, easy wild edible. Okay, the last plant that we're going to talk about today is called chickweed. And it's this light green plant, and it kind of grows along the ground. You can see this is all chickweed right here. And again, with this stuff, the younger it is, the more palatability it's going to have. You can eat this stuff raw. You can eat the flowers. You can even cook these stems, although I would recommend the younger stems as opposed to the older stuff. But all of this is truly edible once it's cooked down. So you have something that grows very prolific that you can get a lot of very quickly if you need to. And it's full of vitamins and minerals. It has a lot of vitamin C in it. Chickweed is full of vitamin C. So as far as your medicinal value goes of this plant, vitamin C is an immune system booster. So you have that going for you with this. I think it's important to understand the medicinal values of the herbs that we eat, because, you know, it was said a long time ago, let thy food be thy medicine. And there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that. So this chickweed, being very prolific, having lots of vitamin C in it, and being a good pot herb, makes it in the top 5 on my list as far as green wild edibles go that you're underfoot in your yard, as it were. Okay guys, well this was just kind of a beginner's look, if you will, at several wild edibles that are very common and easy to find. So if you're just starting out learning about bushcraft, about self-reliance, about being a woodsman in general, or a woodswoman, identifying and being able to harvest wild edibles is an important part of that. And it's easy to practice that stuff even in your own front yard. And again, I think that's a benefit, especially for people who can't always get to the woods. You can still practice viable skills. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.